So before this video continues any further, I would first like to clarify something in my last video. If you haven't seen my last video, you can press this button right in the corner of this, that red button right there. See that? If you click that, it will take you to the video that I published yesterday, which was titled Traditional Marriage is Offensive. Now in this video, I discuss a painting that a young girl did of a mural of how she sees her lifestyle over time. When she's young, gets older, goes through high school, graduates, gets out of college, and then eventually marries with a man. And in this video, I was discussing what is known as traditional marriage and how traditional marriage should not be offensive. And upon reading the comments in that video, it occurred to me that I had absolutely no idea that the word traditional marriage, or just traditional by itself, was such a heated and charged word. To me, the word traditional does not equate to good. I believe that two consenting adults should be able to enter into the social contracts that they deem right for themselves. And for those of you who don't know, I oppose those who seek to deny gay couples the right to marry. My use of the word traditional marriage was to illustrate a difference, not to make one marriage greater than another marriage. Same-sex marriage, heterosexual marriage. Just wanted to get that out there, and for future videos I will not refer to traditional marriage because I had no idea that was such a charged and heated word, and I was also told by some people by using the term traditional marriage I am automatically assuming or having a prejudice against same-sex marriages. And again, if I portrayed that or you thought I was saying that, I apologize, because that certainly was not my intent. With that clarification put aside, let's discuss the rape myth. Some of you may be wondering, what exactly is a rape myth? And a rape myth simply is an assumption about a rape victim which often tries to discredit any sort of sympathy or empathy towards the victim and often tries to put blame on the actual rape victim. So instead of the perpetrator who raped a man or girl, it's the victim's fault. And sadly enough, this is actually a very widely accepted belief system to this very day. In fact, if you go to my latest video when I talked about military females getting raped in the military, there are actually comments on that video justifying and saying women deserve to be raped, women want to be raped, and it's disgusting. And those comments on that video is what inspired me to make this video on the rape myth. Perhaps you have heard these, perhaps you have not. You know, it's not rape if they're dating. If they're dating one another, it's not rape. It's not rape if there was no force or violence on the girl or guy, then it wasn't rape. It's not rape if he or she didn't fight to stop it. It's not rape if he or she went home with me or him in a car. It's not rape if he or she didn't know what was happening to them. Now this is interesting because when I was sexually assaulted, I didn't know what happened to me at that time, and it took over 3 years for me and a therapist and telling my therapist what happened to come to the realization that what happened to me was sexual assault. But this is one of the many common rape myths that seems to go around is if he or she didn't know what was happening to them, well, it wasn't rape. It's not rape if she said no, but she really meant yes. Or it's not rape if she's a prostitute. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, those are what is known as a rape myth example. These are true examples which I have seen, read, and heard people say that it's not rape if these certain things happened. But believe it or not, there's a whole nother side of this rape myth. That's just one side. The other side goes like this. He or she wouldn't have been raped if they hadn't been drinking alcohol. He or she wouldn't have been raped if they hadn't been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He or she wouldn't have been raped if they weren't hot, young, and attractive. He or she wouldn't have been raped if he or she hadn't been leading me on. He or she wouldn't have been raped if they hadn't been sleeping around, being a bad boy or girl, or living the slut lifestyle. This is the one that annoys me the most. She wouldn't have been raped if he or she, this mostly applies to women, if she hadn't of wore sexy or revealing clothing. This is the biggest one that pisses me off the most. In other words, because she wore revealing clothing, she therefore was raped. And she deserved to be raped, well, because she wore sexy clothing. I mean, if a girl wears sexy clothing, that automatically gives somebody the reason to rape her, right? And if she does get raped, well, it's partially her fault because she wore sexy clothing. Yeah, there are people who believe this. There are people who argue this. But I want to tell you something. It is never the victim's fault for being raped. Never. It doesn't matter what type of clothing they're wearing or what place they are at that time. A guy or a girl needs to be able to have self-control for their sexual urges. Meaning that if you see a guy or girl wearing sexual clothing or sexy clothing, that does not give you the right, nor the justification, or the reason to rape them. You need to have self-control. That's what it boils down to. If I walk around public without a shirt on and someone sees me, thinks that's hot, and randomly grabs me, pulls me in a car and rapes me because I had a no shirt off, does that mean it's my fault? It's my fault that someone can't control their urges? That's like sitting at an intersection at a red light, you get hit in the back of your car, and the person gets out and says, it's your fault. You stopped at that red light, and because you obeyed the law and I hit you, it's your fault. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? These are many examples of the rape myth. But even more than that, the rape myth is actually being included in our news and media of this very day. Does anyone remember the story back in February of 2011 when we had a CBS reporter by the name of Laura Logan in Egypt? The story boils down to this. This news reporter was raped in Egypt, and many of the people and the news adopted what is known as the rape myth. In fact, to prove my point further, a female writer and author by the name of Simon Wilson, I believe that's her name, described one of these exact rape myths towards this rape victim. I quote, "Shocking good looks, her blonde reporter hair, war zone it girl. She was using her Hollywood good looks. She was impressive indeed, but nobody's invincible." This writer even went as far to examine Laura Logan's sex life, which obviously has nothing to do with the story of her being raped in Egypt. Nonetheless, this woman was trying to portray an unsympathetic blame on Laura Logan in Egypt for being raped because of her good looks. This was one of the rape myths that I listed earlier. Well, you know, she wouldn't have been raped if she hadn't been young and attractive. N-O. That does not justify someone being raped. The shame, the guilt, and the blame should not be put on the victim just because they're attractive. This story of Laura Logan and the response of this other reporter/writer is a perfect example of how the rape myth has been implemented within the news and the media. This is the tendency of taking strong, judgmental attitudes and views towards a rape victim is a direct result from viewing violent crimes such as rape through the glass lens of the rape myth. That's essentially what the rape myth is. Judgmental views on the rape victim, blaming the rape victim for being raped. This is wrong and disgusting. So in summary, the rape myths are a child's game on trying to justify the act of rape and blame rape victims. It's wrong, disgusting, and it repulses me when I see or hear anyone who says that a woman deserves or wants to be raped. However, there's another topic that I need to discuss. Rape versus rape fantasies. However, many men and women will say that they fantasize of being raped. However, you must realize that there is a difference between fantasy and reality. A rape fantasy does not mean a woman actually wants to be physically raped. A fantasy is a creation and a release into one's mind. It is engaged and controlled in your imagination. You have complete control of the fantasy. When a woman or a man is raped, by definition, sex or unwanted intercourse, forced intercourse on an unwilling victim. That is a real violation not something like a fantasy. Again, the key word here is reality and fantasy, because there's a huge difference. You have to be able to distinguish between the two. In many rape fantasies, the person being raped, the victim, is often raped in a very gentle, kind, loving way, while as the real act of rape is done in a violent, dominating act and seeking for power and control. It's damaging and hurtful, while as the rape fantasies are not like that, because again, the woman or guy is controlling the fantasy within their mind, their own imagination. There can be psychological harm within the victim in real acts of being raped, but does not happen in rape fantasies. But I will answer the question. Do most women want to be raped? The answer is no. But, ... I'm still not done yet. There is, however, some very rare cases. Now, there's a specific name for this, and I don't know the human sexuality jargon for it. But there are rare cases when a woman or man will have such low self-esteem and hate themselves so much and feel so rejected by society that the only way they know that they can feel good about themselves is when somebody rapes them. Because if a man or woman is raping them, they are obviously desirable to that person. This circumstance, though, is extremely rare, but it does exist, and there's a certain name for it within the term of human sexuality, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, this sums up the video of the rape myth. I hope it's kind of given you a clear viewpoint as to what the rape myth is, and if you hear people saying these things, fight back, argue back, because it's really disgusting and repulsive when I see people, as a sexual assault victim, when I see people trying to blame the victims of sexual assault or rape. Because I can guarantee you any rape victim already is struggling with shame, guilt, and blame, and the last thing they need is to have somebody blame them for being raped, because it's not their fault. It's never the victim's fault. Under no circumstance is it ever the victim's fault, and I will stand by that till the day I die. So with that said, I am Mr. Repsion, also known as Daniel Sulzbach. Peace the rep out.